Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Today I'm bringing you another incredibly important topic. And pay close attention, because this video will probably save you more money than many of the investing tips you see online. Look, one of the biggest mistakes people make in Mexico is believing that paying taxes simply means the government is taking their money away. But hold on for a second, because the real problem isn't paying taxes. The real problem is not understanding how they work. And that's exactly where thousands of people end up giving away money every single year. Yes, giving it away. Not because the tax authority charges them too much, but because they don't know the rules of the game. It's like walking onto a soccer field without knowing you're allowed to use your feet. Of course you're going to lose. Today we're going to answer questions that almost nobody explains in a simple way. Why does income tax exist? Why is VAT set at 16%? Who decided that percentage? How do companies legally pay less in taxes? What expenses can you deduct? And what could happen to taxes over the next few years? But stay with me, because first you need to understand something very important. It doesn't matter if you're an employee, own a business, sell products online, or have just started working. We all pay taxes. Yes. Every single one of us. Even if you've never filed a tax return. Every time you buy a soda, a television, a hamburger, or pay your internet bill, you're already participating in Mexico's tax system. And once you understand that, everything else will start making sense. Because the goal of this video isn't for you to memorize tax laws. The goal is for you to understand how money moves through an economy. And trust me, once you understand how money moves, you start making better financial decisions. Now, let's go back several centuries. Imagine a world without roads, hospitals, schools, or police. Everyone would have to solve every problem on their own. Well, something very similar happened a long time ago. The earliest civilizations realized that certain things could only be accomplished if everyone worked together. Building roads, maintaining armies, protecting cities, creating marketplaces. That's when a very simple idea appeared. If everyone contributes a small portion of what they produce, everyone benefits. And that's how taxes were born. Back then, modern money didn't even exist. People paid with corn, livestock, harvests, or even entire days of labor. Something similar happened in Mexico. Before the arrival of the Spanish, many indigenous communities paid tribute to the Aztec Empire. They weren't taxes as we know them today, but they served almost exactly the same purpose. Then came the colonial era. The Spanish crown began collecting taxes on trade, mining, and countless other activities. When Mexico finally gained its independence, a massive problem appeared. The new country needed money. A lot of money. It had to build institutions, maintain a government, pay debts, develop infrastructure, and organize an entirely new nation. From that point on, taxes gradually evolved into the system we know today. And here's something very interesting. Taxes aren't just used to raise money. They're also used to influence people's behavior. That's why some products are taxed more heavily than others. For example, cigarettes, alcohol, and sugary drinks carry additional taxes because those taxes are also intended to discourage consumption. That's something almost nobody explains. Taxes don't just fund the government. They can also shape the economy. Now, let's meet the two main characters of the story. The first one is income tax. In Mexico, it's called ISR, which stands for Impuesto sobre la Renta. Many people get confused because they think renta means renting a house. It doesn't. In tax terminology, renta simply means income. In other words, the money you earn. If you work for a company, if you own a business, if you sell products, if you invest, or receive certain types of income, you'll probably have to pay income tax. But here's something important. Not everyone pays the same amount. Mexico uses a progressive tax system. It sounds complicated, but it simply means this. The more you earn, the higher the percentage you may pay on part of your income. Now here comes one of the biggest tax myths. Some people say, I won't accept a raise because I'll pay more taxes and end up earning less. That's usually false.
Why?
Because income tax works through tax brackets. Not all of your income moves into a higher tax rate. Only the additional portion enters the next bracket. That prevents a small salary increase from actually hurting your income. Once you understand this, you stop making financial decisions based on rumors. And you begin to understand how the government actually calculates taxes. Because yes, there are formulas. There are tax tables. Now, let's talk about the famous VAT, value-added tax. And it works completely differently from income tax. While income tax applies to what you earn, VAT applies to what you spend. In other words, every time you purchase most goods or services in Mexico, you're paying VAT. Today, the standard rate is 16%. But here's the big question. Why exactly 16%? Who decided it had to be that number? Well, it wasn't picked randomly. When VAT was first introduced in Mexico, the rate was different. Over the years, it changed through various tax reforms and economic needs. The government is always trying to find a balance. If the tax is too low, it collects very little revenue. If it's too high, people spend less, tax evasion increases, and economic activity may slow down. That's why finding the right percentage isn't as simple as it seems. It's a combination of economics, politics, consumer behavior, and public finance. Here's another technical term, tax revenue. What does it mean? Very simply, it's all the money the government collects through taxes. The greater the tax revenue, the more resources are available to fund public services. There's something else that's very important. Not every product is subject to VAT. Basic foods, medicines, and certain other goods receive different tax treatment specifically to reduce the financial burden on families. And that decision is also part of the country's economic policy. Now we've reached the part you've probably been waiting for. How do some people and businesses legally pay less in taxes? The answer is one word: deductions. And pay very close attention because this is where countless people lose money every single year. A deduction does not mean the government gives you free money. It also doesn't mean you stop paying taxes. What it means is that certain expenses authorized by law can reduce the amount on which your tax is calculated. Simply put, if the law recognizes that you incurred an expense related to your business activity or an authorized personal expense, that expense may reduce the amount of income tax you ultimately owe. But there are rules. And this is where many people make mistakes. You have to meet specific requirements. In many cases, you must request an electronic invoice, known as a CFDI. CFDI stands for Digital Tax Receipt via the Internet. In simple terms, it's the official document proving that the purchase actually took place. Without that document, many deductions simply won't qualify. In the next part, we'll discover which deductions can legally save you the most money, the mistakes that cost taxpayers thousands of pesos every year, why taxes have increased over time, and what could happen in Mexico over the next few years. If you've made it this far, let me tell you something first. You already know more about taxes than a lot of people. And now we're getting to the part where you can truly make a difference in your finances. Picture this. Two people earn exactly the same amount of money throughout the year. They both work equally hard. They both sell the same products. They both pay taxes. But when it's time to file their annual tax return, one of them ends up paying significantly less.
Why?
Because one understood deductions, the other didn't. That happens every single year in Mexico. So, what exactly is an authorized deduction? It's an expense that the law allows you to subtract from your income when calculating your income tax. In other words, the government recognizes that not every dollar you receive becomes profit. Very often, you have to spend money in order to work or generate income. If you're an independent professional, for example, a computer, internet service, software, office supplies, or equipment related to your business activity may qualify as deductible expenses, provided they meet the legal requirements. If you're an individual taxpayer, you may also qualify for personal deductions such as certain medical expenses, hospital bills, dental services, real mortgage interest, voluntary retirement contributions, qualified charitable donations, and certain educational expenses, always under the conditions established by law. But here's the mistake almost nobody mentions. Some people ask for an invoice for absolutely everything because they think every purchase is deductible.
No.
Just because you have an invoice doesn't automatically mean you'll pay less tax. The expense must be legally deductible and comply with all applicable tax requirements. Now, let's talk about another concept that sounds complicated but is actually very simple. Taxable income. Don't let the name intimidate you. Taxable income is simply the amount on which your tax is calculated. Imagine you earned 100,000 pesos during a certain period. If the law allows you to deduct 20,000 pesos, then your tax is no longer calculated on 100,000. It's calculated on 80,000. That's what reducing your taxable income means. And depending on your situation, that difference can represent substantial tax savings. That's why large companies employ entire teams of accountants, tax attorneys, and financial specialists. Not because they want to avoid paying taxes, but because they want to pay exactly what the law requires. Not 1 peso more. Not 1 peso less. And that brings us to one of the biggest differences between tax evasion and tax avoidance. Tax evasion means hiding income, inventing expenses, or breaking the law. That can result in penalties, interest charges, and even criminal liability. Tax avoidance, on the other hand, means using the legal options provided by tax law to reduce your tax burden. The difference is enormous. One is illegal. The other is simply good financial planning. That's why it's always better to understand the rules than to try to outsmart them. Now you're probably wondering something. Why does it feel like we're paying more taxes every year? There are several reasons. The first is that governments need to finance increasingly larger budgets. As the population grows, spending on healthcare, education, public safety, infrastructure, pensions, and government programs also increases. There's another very important factor: inflation. As prices rise, the cost of nearly everything increases for the government as well. Building a highway today costs far more than it did 10 years ago. Equipping a hospital costs more too. Maintaining schools, universities, and public services has also become more expensive. That's why tax reforms, administrative adjustments, and changes in tax collection happen regularly. Here's something interesting. In recent years, Mexico has focused on increasing tax revenue not necessarily by creating new broad-based taxes, but by improving tax enforcement. What does tax enforcement mean? It's the collection of processes through which tax authorities verify that individuals and businesses are properly complying with their tax obligations. Thanks to electronic invoicing, digital tax receipts, and automatic information sharing, hiding transactions today is much harder than it was 20 years ago. Technology has completely transformed the way the tax system operates, and everything suggests that it will continue evolving. Now, let's talk about the future. Will taxes go up? The truth is that nobody can say for certain. That depends on decisions made by governments, the country's economic situation, economic growth, inflation, and many other factors. What has seemed clear is that the global trend points toward tax systems that are increasingly digital, more automated, and with much greater information sharing. There will be less and less room for mistakes, omissions, or incomplete records. That's why the best advice isn't to look for shortcuts. The best advice is to keep your records organized, request your tax receipts whenever appropriate, understand the tax regime under which you file, and know your tax obligations. That doesn't just reduce risk. It also allows you to take advantage of benefits that many people never realize exist. Because tax knowledge also creates savings, and significant ones. If you're enjoying this type of content, I recommend watching our video explaining how the national budget works and where the government ultimately spends the money it collects. It will help you connect all the pieces. We've reached the end, but I want you to leave with one very clear idea. Taxes aren't just deductions that appear on your paycheck or hidden charges added when you buy something. They're part of how every modern economy functions. Income tax primarily applies to income. VAT primarily applies to consumption. Deductions exist so that taxes better reflect each taxpayer's actual economic situation within the limits established by law. And understanding them can make a meaningful difference in your finances. The worst thing you can do is make financial decisions based on rumors, social media posts, or advice from people who have never read a single tax regulation. Learn. Ask questions. Stay informed. Because understanding how money works will always give you an advantage. If you want to understand why governments also issue public debt and how that debt can directly or indirectly affect your taxes, I recommend watching that video after this one. And if you want to complete the full picture, don't miss our episode explaining how seats work and why the Bank of Mexico has so much influence over the economy. Once you connect those topics, you'll understand how almost the entire Mexican economic system fits together.